Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to our business succession webinar. Today we're talking about succession planning and we're putting in the context of giving business owners some options around exiting their business. My name is Mark Dunsmuir and I'm the CEO and an advisor of Blueprint 4. I'm joined by Paul Pratt, an advisor in our practice and the creator of our Clarity Plan workshops that we're going to discuss later in today's webinar. We create this webinar to address an important, often underappreciated aspect of the business cycle. Arguably, this is one of the most important parts of the cycle, as your business is often your most valuable asset. It funds your retirement and also funds your lifestyle. Today, we'll be covering off on the following items. Am I on the right track? Stresses facing business owners right now. We're going to explore some succession options for your business. We're going to talk about a concept we call the business spine and also what our most successful clients are doing. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the Blueprint 4 Clarity Plan before ending with some questions. Now, feel free to pose your questions in the chat box, and if we don't address them during the webinar, we'll circle back to them before we finish. And Paul, while we talk about a Clarity Plan workshops later, can you take us through why you created the workshop and how this links to business succession?
Thanks, Mark. And yeah, let me, I suppose, give a bit of background and context to where the Clarity Plan come from. So I may have created it for Blueprint 4, but it actually came about 4 and a bit years ago. So as part of our growth in our business, we got involved with an organisation in New Zealand called The Gap that had a lot of business advisory tools and platforms, and it linked back to the 3 freedoms that we talked about that you can see on the slide here. So you talked about money, time and mind, and where we sat with those 3 things. And fortunate enough, while we were there, we were introduced to our business coach at in one of those seminars that we attended. So one of the first things we did working with our business coach TT was look at where we were at right now in relation to like our financial position, time we were spending on a business, and what our status of mind was. So was it clear? Was it stressed? Was I fairly chill? And those sorts of things. So I can't actually say that we created the Clarity Plan name. We've though built the Clarity Plan workshop. So as TT would say, we are indeed what he produced, and we've then turned it into a Blueprint 4 product that we've now been successfully rolling out our client base for about 12 months now, and we're seeing great uptake with it, and we'll get into a bit more detail later about what that looks like. So we really wanted to know and go, okay, where are we right now, and where do you want to be in 5 years' time was what the essence of the Clarity Plan is, because without knowing that, we really had no map about where we were going. So the Clarity Plan was to give us some information from you guys and help you guys build a bit of a plan and map. So things like how much do you need at retirement, or when does retirement come for you? What does that look like? What is your business worth? Also challenge you on a personal perspective. So what does it cost to run your house and your family? Like right now, and as kids get older through school and bits and pieces, are you budgeting for those items as you grow and big ticket items? And also, were you spending the time that you wanted to outside of work? So you might have been running a really successful business, wearing all the hats in your business, and then being stuck in that, I suppose, spin wheel of going, yep, I've got a great business here, but I'm not generating the lifestyle choice that I wanted to do. And that's where our core purpose come out of. So you would see in a lot of our marketing there that we talk about that we want to build successful businesses that generate lifestyle choice and financial freedom. So you sit there and see those 2 things go in hand in hand. There's no point, generating a heap of money and then not getting the ability to enjoy it. And on the reverse, like enjoying lifestyle and those sorts of things and then running out of money. So those sort of things connect quite well together. And we've used this as something very powerful when we've talked about people getting closer to succession. So we're talking about, okay, 5-10 years time, how do you actually want to pass on your business? And there's different ways to do that. So we're going to talk about the few different options there shortly. First of all, though, we're going to talk about why this sounds very simple in practice, in theory to do, but in practice that we don't often take the time to sit back and reflect and build a plan to follow. So we're going to talk about some of the stresses here that business owners are facing, whether it's those in startup phase or right through to succession. So I'm going to let Mark kick off that with some of the stresses that we're dealing with from a business sense.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And there are many stresses that business owners face, and they do vary about what stage you are at in the business cycle. And so generally at the moment, what we're seeing our clients, some stresses some of our clients facing, popular topic at the moment, the rate of inflation, and not just the rate of inflation, but the supply chain difficulties that they're seeing in their business. We're also seeing rising inflation has rising interest rates. I think we're up to the 9th successive interest rate rise already, and it seems to be more to come. So there's a real linkage between inflation and interest rates, and that's really causing a lot of stress to business owners and, in fact, importantly, their employees who are also facing those same stresses. What we're seeing as a result of that is a real crunch to cash flow, and we're just seeing that generally for all businesses. Now, for businesses that are growing, they're dealing with some slightly different issues. So the sort of stresses they're facing is attracting and retaining team members. They're looking at how do I increase market share, and putting this in looking at this in a viewpoint as well as have I got a lack of systems to actually increase my market share. Lack of systems can include ineffective business practices, the wrong person doing the wrong thing at the right time. And when you're looking to increase market share, another big issue is how do you retain margin? So we're finding those stresses for businesses who look like they're growing.
Thanks, Mark, for those stresses. Now I'm going to hone in on some succession type stresses that people face, and another reason why a lot of the times we all get stuck in our business and don't spend the time working on our business and then working on ourselves for our future, and linking that back to what we call the clarity plan. So I know people that I've spoke with, clients that I talk to, some of the stresses they face when they're looking at, I suppose, the succession in their business is, who buys my business? So who do I actually engage to do that? Do I go out and get a business broker? Do I go chat to my competition? Do I chat to my team members? And also the emotional ties that comes with considering selling your business, and then considering what's actually my business worth. Is that going to give me enough funds come retirement time to live the lifestyle that I've chosen to build with my family? And will I keep the team? So what sort of structure do I have in place to keep the team engaged when I'm chatting to someone to potentially buy my business? Am I worried that my whole team will leave and then I've got no business to sell? As Mark touched on, those systems are very powerful in adding value to your business. So when I ask the question, what's your business worth? Sometimes the client will ask that question and would sit there and go, well, what is the business you're actually selling? Is it just you? Is there systems? Is there goodwill? Is there clients that come with it? Is there contracts? And I like to reference an example around different values for different types of businesses. So if you think about a McDonald's, so we all know McDonald's stores, and you sit there and go that they're run by young teenagers through to those in their early 20s, and they have great market share. They've got great systems in place. They don't require a lot of owner input. So a business like that might sell at what we call a multiple of, say, let's call it 10, what their profit is. So if that business is making $200,000 a year, and someone may then be willing to pay 10 times that multiple for that business. So they might pay up to $2 million for that type of business. So I'm using McDonald's as an example there. On the reverse, you might have a business that's really reliant on just you and the input of yourself or one or two key people, have very few systems, and therefore that multiple might be as low as 1. And apologies to any hairdressers that are on today. Hairdressers are an example that I do use with clients. Like the hairdressers, they're buying, if someone was to sell a hairdressers, they're really buying you, unless you've created a business that has multiple people that are servicing clients and the systems in place, the marketing channels and those sorts of things. So predominantly you'd see hairdressers sell for very little. They might sell for 1 time, as I said. So if you've got a hairdresser that's making, say, 100 grand a year, they might only be able to sell that business for $100,000. And it's really important to understand what that looks like, and that does stress people out going, what can I sell my business for? Who will buy it? And then what's most important, will that leave me enough to retire or make the choice that I don't have to work anymore? So that last kick before you've got no ability to generate income through what you've created business-wise in your own personal exertion is really important. And that's why we've created the Clarity Plan workshop, so we can sit there and go, okay, where are you right now? When do you want to retire? What's the gap? And what needs to happen in that time? So I think really now marks a really good time to talk about the different succession options and the pros and cons of those, and some examples that we've experienced with our client base as well.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And as you'll see on this slide here, we've got some options for succession that we wanted to explore in a little greater detail. So we're just going to take you through some of those options, and there are other options on top of these, but these are the main ones that we find. So the first succession option is you would say it's a simple one, which is to sell the business. Selling the business is not an easy thing, as we've probably seen in the last decade, and in particular in this last year. The multiples people are paying for a business are reducing quite quickly, and Paul gave you some examples of some different multiples. And so a real key plank to selling your business is coming up with the right asking price. We're not talking about giving the business away, but we're also talking about setting an asking price that is reasonable to the buyer and also helps achieve your goals, and hopefully those two things meet. So similar to real estate, where people sometimes get a bit passionate about their asset and a bit emotional when they come to their price, you really need to think about this in a very dispassionate way, because the person who's buying it will initially look in that same frame. So we really want you to make sure that you understand the market, not for the market in terms of who your customers are, in a general sense buying your product, but what's the market for people buying businesses like yours. Really understanding what you're selling. So having a really good understanding of what you are actually selling here in your business. Okay, we need to make sure that we're establishing a price that's very transparent and it references the trading conditions. Income and expenses that are exceptional, non-recurring, are factored into that calculation. Now, I've got to say, we've worked with a couple of clients on some valuations recently, and the recent COVID situation has really made it hard to come up with a proper sales price or a sales price that links back to trading conditions. If you think about prior to COVID, year-on-year trading was a very good understanding of the historical performance and gave people a little bit more certainty to the future. What we're now seeing is, if you look at the last 3 years, is a lot of differences in what we consider a normal trading pattern. We're seeing government grants come in, which is really non-recurring income. Equally, those government grants have given people spending money to maybe spend a little bit more. And we've obviously seen changes to those patterns. So really making sure you're transparent in the way you create your asking price is really important in setting that price. And look, if you want higher price and the purchaser is willing to pay up front, then there are some levers you can pull. So one of those levers is called an earn-out option. This is not used often for small businesses. It's usually used in larger businesses, but can be a tool. So an earn-out arrangement is a situation where you take some of that agreed purchase price up front and you take the balance in future installments, but only if the business achieves certain milestones. So you might have an earn-out that is linked to sales performance going forward, or profitability, or it might be with certain key employees sticking around. We find an earn-out option can be a really useful tool when you're selling a business based on growth expectations that may not reflect in your past results. And if we go back to the recent situation about COVID, an earn-out arrangement might be a great way of helping people understand that you're willing to take some risk, but you're confident in the business that you've created. Another option that can sometimes be used is to offer vendor terms to the purchaser. In some cases, the purchaser can find it difficult to raise the funds to purchase your business, or they might only be able to raise a small portion. So providing a vendor loan essentially defers payment of some of the sale price to a later date, either in installments or in lump sums. And look, we generally see this option where we're seeing business owners who don't necessarily need all the funds up front when they sell their business, and they're happy to take it over installments, because it may be they haven't got a better place to invest their money, or it might be that offering vendor terms helps the vendor get the right price. Now, interest can be charged on these types of arrangements if it's agreed between two parties. So there's a couple of levers you can pull when you're looking to sell the business, if you're finding it hard to get the asking price.
Thanks, Mark. And the vendor term one is quite interesting one, and I'm going to talk about selling your business. Not selling your business, but moving it to being run under management. And I've seen that happen initially, and then moving to, say, either a vendor terms or earn-out clause with some of your key employees. So I've actually helped a client through that process over the last couple of years. So essentially what they did first, they put in place the structure where they had a really good team under themselves. So they were running the business, but over time they'd mentored a couple of people in that business and got to the position where they stepped away from the business, and two people within that business stepped up, and they actually ran the business on behalf of the client. So having someone be able to step in and do that was quite a powerful way to do it in a staged approach. So you still got to keep the earnings the business was making over and above wages. So you're still getting profits, or as we call dividends, from a company, and you still had that asset maintain its value. And then those team members got a taste of what the business could do, because they also got a profit share. So they got to share in a bit of the profit the business made. And then the step after that was to actually then negotiate to sell the business, where there was a partial vendor terms contract, where the client then extended the income that they were able to generate from that business by about 5 years, still got the realization price at the end, and successfully sold their business and funded their lifestyle, like the retirement lifestyle that they wanted, in a risk-averse way, without actually having to go to market and put team members off or clients off, because it pretty much stayed the same the whole way through, and they just stepped aside. To be able to do that, that was really important, that they had good systems in place, good reporting. So they had a dashboard of what the critical numbers they need to see on a regular basis to understand if the business is performing. They had a really clear business plan and a great team structure in place. So not only the right team doing the right things at the right time, but also the right processes in place. So performance KPIs and critical drivers for those guys to know if they were doing what they were meant to do in their roles. And very powerful way, if you really don't want to let go of that business either just yet, just in case, to be able to give yourself some time freedoms and step aside, but still get the financial benefits of that business from a profitability perspective. So would consider that if you've got the right team in place. And if you haven't yet got the right team, you can do the work to get to that point to build the team. And we do that with our clients, so we help build them with their org charts and the structures in place. We call that the 10 hats, and that's something that we've done successfully with many clients as well. So we talked about two ways where you're giving the business or selling the business to people outside of your family unit. I think another one, Mark, that's really powerful is, we say quite often, is that you've created something, you want to pass it on to the next generation in your family.
Yeah, that's right. And look, we see this particular option traditionally a lot in the farming space. So, but that doesn't mean that other businesses and business owners don't do the same. So as Paul said, we've got business owners who want to pass the business on to the next generation. And when you thinking about that, owners need to make sure they factor this option into their retirement planning, because passing on to the next generation, you need to determine the value attribute to the business. In some instances, a child may already be working in the business and may feel they've already added value to the business and don't want to pay full market price. Equally, you've got to consider your own options in retirement, and is there a certain amount of money you need in order to pass the business over and retire? The issue gets really complicated when there are siblings involved that aren't in the business. And this is the one we find we work most with a lot of clients on, is how do we make sure that we can pass the business to the next generation, but everyone is treated equally, or fairly is probably a better word than equally, because equal and fairness can be two different things. Emotions are very, very hard to avoid in this sort of situation. So we do find that if you're a single child family, this can be a very simple and easy process, but where there are others involved, this can be quite an involved process. So we really urge people who are considering this that they do need to sit down with an advisor and really look at the pros and cons on how they're going to do this, and really examine all the angles, because there's nothing worse, and we unfortunately have seen it, where families have fractured as a result of one sibling getting treated more equally, let's call it, than others. So passing on the next generation, however, can be a great way of moving your business along. And we see plenty of businesses who have had a very long tradition, have been in business for a long time because they have passed down generations successfully. So when done well, it can be a great way of realizing value in your business while keeping it alive and in the model and mode that you first created it. And Paul, you're going to just explore another option, which is about just closing out and turning the assets into cash.
Yeah. So we've talked about some options that involve engaging third parties in respect to either taking over the business, buying it, those sorts of things. You may get to the point and be able to make the choice that, geez, I've generated enough cash with inside this business. I've got some decent assets. And when I'm talking assets, physical assets, you might have some trucks, factory, machinery, and those sorts of things. And instead of going down the process of selling to a third party, you may decide and go, I'm done, I've had enough, I'm just going to turn everything that I've got into cash and walk away and sail off into the sunset. Or on the flip side, you might not have that choice. You may have been left with a business or created a business that you can't sell, and then the only option that you've got is to turn that into cash. Either way, under these options, again, it's really important to understand tax consequences of doing that, and also having clarity about how much money will that then add to my overall wealth to be able to then generate the income that I need to from the assets that I've built up over my time, over our time, to be able to live the lifestyle I want to choose. So that's really important, to not just go, geez, I've had enough, I'm just going to sell out and turn into cash. There may be better options out there. Or you may just need to be able to have to do that and go, geez, I can walk away with 500 grand. I've got X in super and Y here and a couple other investments. Your clarity plan will tell you that. So that's where we sit there and go, the clarity plan sits as a really key part in the overall plan that you should have as part of your succession. And I'm going to let Mark talk about where the clarity plan sits around some of the products and systems that we work with. And he's got a pretty cool word that he uses to explain this. So I'll let Mark talk about that. And before you do, Mark, I know that we should give some kudos. We also learnt this, amongst many other things, from our business coach as well.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And it's really important. What we've just talked about there is ways to exit your business. But exiting your business doesn't start the day you decide you wanted to sell and retire. It starts way back further in that journey. And so that's what we wanted to change this discussion a little bit, to talk about, as Paul will talk about later, about what are some of our most successful clients doing. And what we want to do is introduce this to you in the concept of the business spine. Now, those of you joined the launch of our new business name about 3 months ago, this diagram will be familiar to you. So we want to provide an analogy. So with a healthy human will have a strong spine, and we like to think of a business in those same terms. The spine is important. It protects the spinal cord that connects the brain to your central nervous system. It supports a rib cage, which protects your heart. And in a business analogy, your brain is the why of your business, and the heart is your people and your culture. And as you'll see along in the diagram, the tasks listed along the spine strengthen your business and support your business brain and your business heart. So as you'll see, the business spine consists of a number of activities that we feel is really important for business owners. And if we talk about the brain of the business, we come to the clarity plan. And the clarity plan really sets the why, or the what, as you'll see in the structure the diagram. What am I trying to achieve? Because the business is only one small cog in what I'm trying to achieve, which really links to the strategic plan. The strategic plan is certainly the brain of your business. What am I trying to achieve? we move down into what we call 10 hats, which is about people and culture. It's really about the heart of the business and why you're actually doing things. And then if we look further down a strong spine and a strong business, they're going to be quite strong in things like cash flow forecasting, setting accountability and meeting those requirements, and system design is a really important one. And these are all things that you don't do the day you want to retire. These are all things you do throughout your business life in order to create that healthy spine, healthy business that you can then have a sellable product later. So Paul's just going to explore what some of our most successful clients are doing.
Thanks, Mark. And I'm just going to touch on how the Clarity Plan links to each of the things that Mark's talked there in some detail. So some of our most successful clients, this is what they're doing. First of all, we're sitting down and understanding, getting clarity about where they are now and where they want to do. So it's all around that Clarity Plan, and then going from that, okay, where are the gaps? Has your business got a strategic plan? So you may see a client do a Clarity Plan with us, then we identify that they want to do a strategic plan, and then we move into ongoing accountability sessions. So we're helping guide and teach the client around where they're at in their business and what do they need to build. So have they got systems in place? Have they got 10 hats in place? Have they got those things? And we're guiding them there. And what I'm sharing there as one example is effectively what we did with our business coach 4 years ago. So we first of all did Clarity Plan with our business coach, then we sat down and did our strategic plan, and then we flowed through where we've gone through and we touched on through our accountability sessions that we did on a regular basis. We worked on our 10 hats, we worked on our forecasting, we've helped systemize our business and those sorts of things there. So again, not telling you guys to do anything that we haven't done ourselves or we don't do with our successful clients. Sometimes you might flick straight into a Clarity Plan and identify that, geez, the business is running really well, but I'm spending 50, 60, 70 hours on my business and I've got no lifestyle choice. So in that situation, you can flip straight into doing a 10 hats and you sit there going, okay, what hats am I wearing in my business? Am I wearing them at the right time? Mark and I did that, and that was a situation that we were in, and Mark and I were wearing pretty much all the hats in our business. And over a 4-year period, we've now, I suppose, progressed where myself, I'm only wearing 2 hats of the 10 in our business, and Mark's only actually wearing 1 hat in that business. And that's been part of the succession model that we've done. And I'm deliberate in sharing our story because we're quite congruent in what we do. And I'm also mindful not to share too much about what our clients do from a confidentiality perspective as well. So there's some examples of what we've done, and we've done this with our clients as well. And the ones that work with us more often, so don't just hang out with us to do our tax and tax planning, that's when we see the greatest results and the greatest rewards, and the clients see the greatest value in what we provide to them because they're achieving what they want to achieve personally. And that's what drives why we've gone out to start up a business as well. So I think now it's probably really important that I'll just touch a little bit about what the Clarity Plan looks like, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. So as mentioned earlier, the Clarity Plan is really a key part of helping you understand where you are on the journey towards succession, and what succession looks like is different for every person. So some people might want to create a business that's worth $5 million and sell. Some people may only want to be able to generate might only want to have $1 million in retirement if that's the number they want, and work 3 days a week. And that's why that clarity is important, because there's no turnkey solution for everyone. Everyone's different, and it's important that we look at each person's situation individually. So when you do a Clarity Plan, yeah, you'll get some homework. Doesn't take too long to do, but it's important that you do some homework. Then we'll have a meeting. We'll hang out for a couple of hours where either Mark, myself, or Stu or Steph, the current advisors in our business, deliver that workshop with you. And then you'll get some pretty cool takeaways around, okay, this is where I am now. This is where I want to get to. And what are those gaps? And what are the actions that I need to take? And is there any support that you need to help implement those things? So sort of that's the basis of a Clarity Plan. The real outcome though at the end, like if I want to sum it up, Mark, would be, will I have the assets? So will I have created enough leveraged assets, not passive assets, so leveraged assets, so that's assets other than myself, that will generate the income for our family group to give me the lifestyle I want when I come and make that choice to no longer work in my business or own my business and those sorts of things. So that's the really key outcome that we drive. And that might be 10, 15 years down the road. The sooner you get into the mindset of thinking about the planning and seeing where you are now and where you want to get to, and working on that, the greater success you will get, because you've got a map. Like, you're not going to try and go do other things outside of business without a map. So you should have a map that tells you about where you want to get to. And that's essentially why we created the Clarity Plan workshops, Mark. And I know that they're the most enjoyable meetings I do now. And then the follow on that you do that and the rewards you see in the clients, that's why we do what we do. And we're really living into our core purpose here when we do that.
Thanks for that, Paul. We're now moving to the question sections of the webinar, and we did just have a question in regards to 10 hats, because some people may be not familiar with that. So what I've just put up in the chat box is a link to a YouTube clip that myself and Stephanie Green, one of our directors, shot a few years ago, that just gives you a bit more explanation about 10 hats and what impact and how that runs in your business. So go ahead and click on that link if you'd like to, and that will take you to that webinar that you can watch after this if you'd like to. Now, Paul, I've got a couple of questions here, and I think between you and I we'll answer them. One of the questions I've got here is there anything I can do to increase the sale price of my business? Would you want to start on that one, Paul? Or would you like to?
I can start, Mark, and I'm sure you can jump in. There's lots of things you can do, and I'm just going to focus on one, and it links back to what I spoke about earlier around McDonald's and their systems. So one of the things that I would think, one of the things I know that adds value to your business, if you can create the systems to be able to have pretty much everyone know where their place is in their business and be able to deliver your product and service without it being stuck up in your head. So you're effectively creating a manual. Like, you think about McDonald's. So within a week, you've got teenagers running a multi-million-dollar business as soon as they go in there. McDonald's, yes, they've got a great product and yes, marketing, all those sorts of things. They wouldn't be able to do that though without the systems that they've created. So a lot of business owners have great businesses, but it's really relying on them. So if they can get what's out of their head into the system and teach it to their team, and then have the team be able to do that, because then you can leverage your model as well, because then that will also improve your bottom line. There's so many benefits of systemizing your business. So that would be one of the things I would say would answer that question there, Mark, about adding value to your business.
Yep. And in a similar vein, if you think about someone who's looking to buy a business, in many cases, you're looking for someone who's got an ability, either technical or willingness to learn to how to run your business. And that person also needs to have the amount of money required to purchase a business. And it can often be quite hard in getting those that person with those two items. So as Paul talked about with systems, the same is in regards to people. You're really looking at creating systems that can remove you from the business or doesn't require you in the business. And if you can do more of that, it means a person who's buying doesn't necessarily have to have your technical abilities, because you've got those systems in place. So we think those are a couple of the key areas or thinkings in regards to the multiples. Paul, another question here is about, how can I sell my business? What are the platforms available, or how do I actually go about selling my business?
Okay, good one, Mark. I'm going to try and, I'll be able to keep discreet. I'm working currently with a client that's looking to sell their business, and we're exploring a couple of different avenues at the minute. So we've gone and looked and gone, the business that they've got is got a fairly decent sale price. So it's not going to appeal to everyone out there. So what we've gone and done is we've gone out there and met with half a dozen different, I won't call them brokers, but experts in the industry that have got experience in selling these types of assets. And we've met with each of those and worked out which has the best fit for our client. Because you've got to have a really good relationship with who's selling your business. And now so we've engaged someone, a third party, to sell that business. And now what we're going to do is we're going to off-market approach who we feel are maybe the dozen people or dozen other businesses or people or families avenues to do that. So we're doing that as an off-market transaction that we're going to approach and invite a tender process for that business because we strategically think these people may be interested in buying this client's business. So that's one of the options you can do. The other is you can just engage a business broker, list it for sale, and they'll work closely with us on trying to generate a transaction for you. I've seen people advertise in the local paper, may not be the best option though, because you're reducing the market, you're putting it out there. And you also got to be mindful about the impact it has on your team if they find out your business is for sale. And so another option is to have a look at your current team, as we talked about, and go, is there someone here I could sit down with and look to buy? All those options, I would suggest you come and chat to your advisor first, though, because we've done this a fair few times. And again, that's the right solution for the right business, and they're all different based on what's happening out there.
Thanks for that answer, Paul. And we've got one final question. Is a question that comes, how long does a clarity plan last for, Paul? And do I need to repeat it?
Good question. So clarity plan is I reckon is about an hour to 2 hours of homework that you will need to do. Then you spend 2 hours with us doing it, and then you'll have a takeaway either that day or the next day. And that's something live that then you should be using on a regular basis. And that lasts for, I'm suggesting it lasts for 12 months, and that's the process that we're doing there, or earlier circumstances go, and it's your guide for the next 12 months, and then we revisit it. So it's something that you should be looking on an annual basis. That's what we do, and it evolves as you evolve, because things with investments change, your business changes, your superannuation changes, circumstances change. So it's not do it once, throw it in the drawer and forget about it. It's a live document you should look at, and then spend the time every 12 months going into the detail about it and mapping out where I am on those steps towards that 5 or 10 year target that I'm heading towards.
Thanks, Paul. So that concludes our webinar, our session today on succession plans for your business. Hopefully, Paul and I have provided some insight and some information around succeeding and moving your business to the next stage. As always, if you've got any questions directly about your own personal circumstances or business, don't hesitate to reach out to your Blueprint 4 advisor and we'll endeavour to help. So thanks for joining. Bye.
Thank you.